Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Way back before the Great Flood washed over the earth, and before divine judgment came down on humankind, there was this really special guy. God had set him apart for a super important mission. This man was named Enoch, and he was a descendant of Jared. People really looked up to him because he was so wise and skilled at making things. He lived such a good and devoted life that it caught God's eye. And because of that, he got a privilege that hardly anyone else, maybe nobody else, ever got. Enoch was taken into the most secret parts of heaven, into the celestial places where God himself lives. He got to see eternal realities with his own eyes, where everything is perfectly organized and in harmony because the Almighty is in charge. He had visions of places where beings of light, the messengers of God, shone brighter than the sun. He saw the throne that no one can get to, surrounded by a light that's impossible for humans to describe. And he heard the heavenly songs of the cherubim, those echoes of praise that go on forever throughout the heavens. These divine revelations, which had never been given to a human before, were the start of Enoch's journey to heaven. He was the first one to tell about the 10 levels of heaven, a truth that's written down in what we know as the Second Book of Enoch. When Enoch was 165 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. He lived for another 200 years after that, making him 365 years old in total. On the first day of a new month, something amazing happened. Enoch was all alone lying down when this really deep and unexplainable sadness came over him. Even while he was sleeping and without even knowing what was about to happen, tears started flowing from his closed eyes. Then 2 beings that looked supernatural showed up in front of him. They were like nothing Enoch had ever seen before, tall and majestic, with faces that shone like the sun, eyes that burned like fire, and mouths that had flames coming out of them. Their clothes shone with the deepest shade of purple. Their wings gleamed like gold, and their hands were as pure as snow. They stood next to his bed and called him by name. Enoch woke up, and when he saw them, he greeted them, but he was also really scared, and his face showed how astonished he was. Seeing how afraid he was, one of the beings spoke to him in a voice that was firm but calm. "Don't be afraid, Enoch," he said. "We've been sent by the eternal God. Today, you're going to go up to heaven with us. But first, you need to tell your children and everyone in your household what to do while you're gone. No one should look for you until the Lord brings you back." Without asking any questions, Enoch did what he was told. He left his house and went to the place he was supposed to go. There he gathered his sons, Methuselah, Rahim, and Gad, and he told them what the heavenly messengers had said. "Listen carefully, my sons," Enoch said. "I don't know where I'm going or what's going to happen to me, but I'm telling you, don't turn away from the Most High God for the sake of silly things or false powers that didn't create the heavens or the earth. All of those things and the people who follow them are going to be destroyed. May the Lord give you courage and wisdom to live in reverence to him." And he finished by saying, "No one must come looking for me. I'll only come back when the Lord allows it." Right after he said those words, Enoch was lifted up by the angels. Using their radiant wings, they raised him from the earth up into the heights, taking him to the first level of heaven, where they put him on the clouds. This was the beginning of his journey into the divine realms. As he looked up, he saw even higher, beyond what human eyes can see. In what we know as the first heaven, he was shown a huge celestial ocean, way bigger than all the seas on earth put together. There he was brought before the elders and cosmic leaders who are in charge of the stars. He saw 200 angels who were responsible for organizing the celestial bodies and guiding them as they moved across the skies. With their majestic wings, these angels traveled through the heavens along the same paths that celestial travelers used. When he looked down, Enoch saw the great storehouses of snow, guarded by mighty and impressive angels. He watched the clouds being born and saw where they went after they had finished their cycle. He was also shown the place that was reserved for the Jew. It looked like olive oil, bright and full of life, reflecting the beauty of all the flowers in the world. These chambers were watched over by angels, who controlled when they opened and closed, according to God's will. Next, Enoch was taken to the second heaven. There, the darkness was deeper than any shadow you've ever seen on earth. Floating in that darkness were imprisoned beings, waiting for their eternal judgment. They looked even more terrifying than the darkness itself, and their constant cries filled the air. Curious, Enoch asked the angels who were with him, "Why are these spirits crying all the time?" They answered, "These are the ones who turned away from God, choosing to follow their own desires and rebel alongside their leader, who is now being held in the fifth heaven." Filled with deep sadness, Enoch watched as the imprisoned beings greeted him and begged, "Servant of the Most High, please help us." But Enoch humbly answered, "I'm just a mortal man. How can I pray for angels? I don't even know what's going to happen to me or who will pray for me." After this encounter, his guides led him to the third heaven. There, Enoch was put in a dazzling land full of wonders that no human had ever known. Trees grew everywhere, loaded with fruit that gave off rich, sweet smells. The food there seemed to overflow with joy and fragrance. In the middle of this paradise stood the tree of life, the place where the Lord rests when he visits the celestial garden. This tree was so beautiful that it's hard to describe. Its scent was overwhelming, and its colors gleamed with gold, crimson, and fiery tones. It had every kind of fruit on it, and its roots were firmly planted in a garden on the border between the earthly realm and the divine. This paradise was set between the world of corruption and the world that is eternal. From this sacred place flowed two springs. One gushed honey and milk, and the other poured out oil and wine. These springs divided into 4 great rivers, which flowed gently through the Garden of Eden before spreading across the world, completing the natural cycle of the elements. There wasn't a single tree there that didn't bear fruit. In every corner, blessings overflowed. 300 radiant angels guarded the garden, and their voices echoed endlessly, singing beautiful hymns in honor of the Lord. Amazed, Enoch exclaimed, "This place is truly magnificent." And the heavenly beings with him replied, "Enoch, this garden was prepared for those who stay faithful even when things get really tough. They're the ones who turn away from evil, judge fairly, share food with those who are hungry, give clothes to those who are naked, strengthen those who are weak, and take care of orphans. They live righteously before God and worship him with sincerity and exclusivity." However, there was also a dark side. A black fire burned constantly, rising from a river of flame. The whole area was gripped by scorching heat and piercing cold, by unbearable thirst and uncontrollable shivering. Cruel chains bound the condemned, and the guardian angels were fearsome, merciless, and armed with instruments of torture. Their suffering never ended, and the cries seemed to go on forever. Faced with such a terrifying vision, I cried out in despair, "This place is horrifying." The celestial beings who were with me responded solemnly, "This is the destiny prepared for those who reject the Creator. They're the ones who gave themselves over to sin, corrupted nature, and committed wicked acts against innocent children. They're the ones who practice sorcery, engage in black magic, and take pride in their evil deeds. This is where the liars, thieves, those who spread envy and hatred, and those who shed blood without remorse dwell. They curse their fellow humans, exploit the poor for easy money, and ignore the hungry, letting the naked and helpless suffer alone. These people never knew their Creator. They worshipped lifeless idols, statues that can't breathe, hear, or see. They revered gods made by human hands, and now they face eternal judgment. This dark place is their final reward. After this revelation, the men led me even higher to the fourth heaven. There I was amazed by the radiant paths of the sun and the moon, which moved with precision and stunning brilliance. I compared their lights and noticed that the sun shone much more brightly than the moon. The sun traveled with amazing speed like a ceaseless wind that never stops, day or night. It was escorted by 4 principal stars, each surrounded by 1,000 smaller stars. 4 on each side accompanied its celestial path. Altogether, 8,000 stars followed its daily journey. 15 legions of angels served it constantly. At night, 1,000 beings with 6 wings appeared, led by angels, clearing the way for the sun to cross the darkness with its blazing light. Special beings kindled it, keeping its flame alive. I also observed extraordinary creatures associated with the sun called phoenixes and shakidri. These beings had feet like lions with tails and heads resembling crocodiles. Their bodies shone like rainbows, enormous in size, each one measuring 900 units. Each had 12 wings like the angels. They stayed near the sun, carrying its heat and moisture as commanded by God himself. I saw the sunrise in the eastern sky. It began its journey in accordance with the rhythm of the seasons, months and cycles of the year, marking the hours of day and night with precision. There were 6 portals from which the sun emerged, each precisely 61 1/4 stadia wide. These were the gates through which the sun passed month after month, measured with perfect accuracy. The sun traveled through these portals in balance, returning by the same paths as the seasons progressed. After completing its path through the 4 cycles of the year, the time pattern was fulfilled. The complete cycle of a year was sealed. Then the men led me westward, where there were 6 more portals mirroring those of the east. These were the sunset exits aligned with the same 365 1/4 days of the solar cycle. The sun passed through these western gates, and upon vanishing, left only the trail of its light in the sky. Yet its radiant crown remained before the Lord, while 400 angels guarded that celestial glow. During that time, the sun descended through an underground path hidden beneath the earth, where it rested for 7 great hours during the night. Half of its journey occurred in that lower plane, but in the 8th hour it would approach the east again, bringing back its light and warmth. When it emerged, its intensity was stronger than fire itself. At that moment, the phoenixes and shakadri, those magnificent sun creatures, began to sing. All the birds of the sky flapped their wings in celebration of the bearer of light. And at the Lord's command, the creatures chanted, "The bearer of light has come. He shines upon all the earth. The God of the morning reveals himself in the rays of the sun, and the sun rises once more to illuminate the world. Together the rays and divine light shone over all creation." The men then revealed to me how the movements of the sun were measured, and how it passed through those sacred gates that marked every hour of the year. For this reason, the sun is considered one of the most powerful creations, with a complete cycle of 28 years before beginning its course anew. The men then unveiled another celestial mystery. Before me stood 12 great portals, connecting west to east, through which the moon journeys at appointed times. The moon enters the first western gate beside the sun's path and remains there for exactly 31 days. It passes through the second gate also for 31 days, then the third and fourth for 30 days each, the 5th and 6th again for 31 days. In the 7th gate it remains for 30 days again, then 31 at the 8th, 31 at the 9th, 30 at the 10th, 31 at the 11th, and finally 28 days at the 12th gate. Just as it enters through the eastern gates, the moon also returns through the western ones, completing its cycle. This path follows the 365 1/4 days of the solar year. However, the lunar year contains only 354 days, leaving a 12-day difference. Days referred to as lunar seasons. These variations are balanced in cycles of 532 years. A quarter day is emitted in each of the first 3 years, and added in the fourth to align the total time. During the first 3 years, the extra time is not counted to avoid imbalance. Otherwise, 2 months would grow and 2 would shrink. When the sun finishes its journey through the western gates, it returns to the east, beginning again its path toward the light, a continuous cycle renewed with each sunrise and sunset. It moves faster than any wind, spirit, force of nature, or flying angel. Each angel involved in this cycle has 6 wings and follows a pattern repeated every 19 years, divided into 7 sacred cycles. In the intermediate heaven, I saw celestial warriors exalting the Lord with drums and stringed instruments. Their voices never ceased. The harmonies they produced were so sweet and varied that no human language could describe them. Their melodies calmed the mind and filled me with serene joy as I listened in reverence. Soon the men led me to the 5th heaven. There I encountered a countless multitude of powerful beings called Grigori. They had human-like appearances, but their stature was colossal, greater than even the greatest giants ever seen. Their faces were marked by weariness, and their expressions were filled with deep sorrow. No words came from their mouths. There was no worship in that place. Curious, I asked the men who were with me, why do they seem so silent and downcast? Why is there no praise here? And they answered, these are the Grigori, who along with their leader, Saturnile, turned away from the Lord of Light. Others like them were cast into the deep darkness of the 2nd heaven. 3 of them abandoned the throne of God and descended to a place called Urban. There they broke their sacred vows on the slopes of Hillman. They saw the beauty of the daughters of men, took them as wives, and corrupted the earth with their actions. These fallen angels lived in impiety, gave birth to violent giants, and spread chaos. For these transgressions, God judged them severely. Now they suffer for the fall of their brothers and await final judgment on the day of the Lord. I turned to them and said, I have seen your brothers and witnessed the consequences of their choices. I prayed for them, but God has sentenced them to remain on earth until the end of this world. Then I asked, why do you remain here in silence instead of returning to serve the Lord? Why do you not bow before him before his wrath is complete? They listened to my words attentively and sent a message across all 4 divisions of the heavens. Suddenly, while I was still with the 2 men, 4 trumpets sounded together with a mighty blast. The Grigori stood and sang with one voice, a deep, sorrowful, and moving sound that rose to the heavens before the throne of God. After this, the men took me to the 6th heaven. There I saw 7 groups of radiant angels, shining as brightly as the sun itself. Their faces glowed more brilliantly than any known light, and all of them had identical appearances, garments, and conduct. These angels had a noble task. They were responsible for maintaining divine order. They monitored the cycles of the stars, the movements of the moon, the path of the sun, and the balance of the entire cosmos. When they witnessed acts of injustice or deviation, they issued commands and gave guidance. Their voices were like hymns, beautiful and powerful, with songs of praise. These higher archangels governed and oversaw all life in the heavens and on earth. There were also angels assigned to specific roles in the order of creation. Some watched over the seasons and the years. Others supervised rivers and seas. Some cared for the fruits of the earth, while others observed every blade of grass, ensuring food for all living creatures. Certain angels had the sacred duty of recording human souls, noting every action, word, and thought of each life before God. Among them were 6 phoenixes, 6 cherubim, and 6 winged beings who sang in perfect harmony ceaselessly. Their voices were so awe-inspiring that no human description could capture them. They celebrated joyfully before the throne of the Most High as if time did not exist. Then the 2 men led me even higher to the 7th heaven. There I was enveloped by an overwhelming light and witnessed grand armies of flaming archangels alongside invisible forces, powers, authorities, cherubim, seraphim, and thrones, radiant beings full of eyes and light. There were 9 distinct orders in that hierarchy of celestial glory. Overcome by awe, I began to tremble. But the men reassured me, saying, "Be strong, Enoch, don't be afraid." Then they showed me from afar the Lord seated on an immense throne, exalted above all things. With reverence I asked, "What lies beyond this? What exists in the 10th heaven?" And they answered, "That is where God himself dwells." In Hebrew, this heaven is called Aravat. In that sacred place, all celestial beings gather, standing upon 10 steps arranged according to their levels and functions. They bow before the Lord and then return to their places, singing softly in eternal praise to the infinite light. Around the throne were cherubim and seraphim, beings with 6 wings and many eyes who never depart from the divine presence. They remain before God, carrying out his will with devotion while chanting, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Heaven and earth are full of his glory." As I beheld all of this, the 2 men said to me, "Enoch, we were instructed to guide you only this far." Then they departed, leaving me alone at the edge of a 7th heaven. Terrified and overwhelmed with awe, I fell to the ground and whispered, "What is happening to me?" It was then that the Lord sent a magnificent being, Gabriel the archangel. He appeared before me and said, "Be strong, Enoch. Don't fear. Come with me. You are destined to stand before the Lord forever." But I, gripped by fear, thought within myself, "Lord, my spirit nearly abandoned me from sheer terror. I trusted the men who brought me here. I believed they would lead me to you." Then Gabriel lifted me like a leaf carried by the wind and brought me before the face of the Lord. As I looked upward, I saw the 8th heaven called Musulo in Hebrew, where the transitions between dry and rainy seasons are regulated, and where the 12 celestial constellations dwell above the 7th heaven. Then I was taken to the 9th heaven, known as Kokavim. There are the abodes of the 12 zodiac signs fixed in the firmament. Finally, I reached the highest point of all creation, the 10th heaven, Aravot. I lifted my eyes and beheld the face of the Lord. It was like burning iron drawn from the fire, glowing, sparking, and blazing intensely. The vision of his presence was indescribable. Who am I to attempt to describe the indescribable? The glory of the Lord is so great that no tongue can express it, no thought can comprehend it. I cannot count the instructions that proceed from his lips, nor number the countless voices that echo from his presence. His throne is colossal, not made by human hands, and is surrounded by legions of cherubim and seraphim who sing without ceasing. His beauty is eternal, and his glory exceeds imagination. Overwhelmed by such majesty, I fell on my face to the ground. Then the Lord spoke to me, saying, "Be strong, Enoch. Don't be afraid. Rise and stand before me for all eternity." At that moment the archangel Michael came to me, lifted me up, and brought me to remain before the presence of the Lord. Then the Most High turned to his celestial servants, and as a test said, "Let Enoch stand before me forever." The glorious beings around the throne bowed in reverence and replied, "So be it, according to the word of the Lord." Then the Lord commanded Michael, "Remove from Enoch his earthly garments, anoint him with my fragrant oil, and clothe him in the garments of my glory." Michael obeyed. He anointed me with the heavenly oil, brighter than any light, gentle as dew, with a sweet and comforting fragrance. When I looked at myself, my body shone like the glorious ones. I had become like the celestial beings. Then the Lord summoned one of his wisest archangels, Pravil, whose wisdom surpasses all others, and who records all the works of the Lord. The Most High said to him, "Bring the books from my storehouses and a fast writing pen. Give Enoch the finest and most revealing scrolls." Pral came to me and began to teach me everything. He explained the heavens, the earth and the seas, the elements and their movements, the patterns of thunder, the paths of the sun and moon, the seasons, the days and the hours. He revealed the origins of the winds, the number of the angels, and how their songs are composed. He taught me about human life, the languages of songs, the divine laws, the teachings, and all the righteous praises worthy of being known. Everything I now share was imparted to me by him. Finally, he said, "Sit and write. Record every soul that will ever be born and the places prepared for each one for all eternity. Every spirit was planned before the foundation of the world, and each soul is paired with another for 30 days and 30 nights. And so, obeying the command of the Most High, I sat down and wrote with utmost care everything that had been revealed to me. In the end, I completed 366 books, faithfully recording the visions and secrets entrusted to me. Then the Lord called out to me once again. With a voice both powerful and tender, he said, "Enoch, come sit at my left hand beside Gabriel." I knelt in reverence, and he continued, "Enoch, my beloved, everything you have seen, all that has been created, all that exists, and all that is yet to come has now been revealed to you. Before time began, before anything existed, I created all things out of nothing. I made the invisible visible. I caused the spiritual to take form in the physical world. Listen carefully, Enoch. The words you have heard, I have never shared them with any of my angels. I never revealed to them the origin of existence itself, nor the vastness of my endless kingdom. They do not understand how all of creation was called into being, but to you I have revealed it. Before anything could be seen, I was already walking through the invisible, from one end of what is now called heaven to the other. Just as the sun moves across the firmament from east to west, I crossed the void without rest, without pause, laying the foundations of creation, shaping what would one day be seen. And thus ended Enoch's incredible voyage, took him through the 10 heavens. He traversed areas of light beyond description, moved past the prisons holding fallen angels, stood inside the storage places for stars, and even appeared in front of the throne of the living God. He witnessed what would happen to those who rebelled, and the lasting reward pledged to the faithful. And with each vision, one godly truth resounded with sacred precision. God is in charge of everything, both in the heavens and here on earth. Enoch wasn't picked only because he was righteous, but so he could write down everything he saw. It's a timeless account, a living message for all future generations. It's a message that holds warning, hope, and an everlasting reason for living. Now we're left with a single question. How will you respond to this revelation? Will you pay no attention to what's been revealed? Or will you pursue fairness, repentance, and trust? Will you make your way toward the eternal kingdom, or will you keep living like you haven't heard anything? The Book of Enoch is more than just a record of visions. It's an invitation. It shows God's greatness, the seriousness of judgment, and the magnificent beauty of the divine plan. May we all choose faithfulness so that one day we, too, can stand before him dressed in glory, just as Enoch did. Thank you for coming along on this amazing trip through Enoch's 10 heavens. If you found this video moving in any way, give it a like, share it, and subscribe to get more content on the Bible's hidden mysteries and heavenly revelations. Drop a comment below. I'm seeking the kingdom if you want to stay strong on the path of light. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.